Welcome everyone to Global Purpose Speaks. I'm your host, Taz Rashid, and I'm a musician who travels to mindful festivals and events all throughout the world. And one of my many passions is to have conversations with transformational leaders, learn about their unique missions and how they're changing the world. This talk series is created in partnership with Global Purpose Movement, which is a collective of change makers convening and co-creating in our Earth's current shift towards a world that's working for everyone. And today, we're speaking with Laurence Brahm, an American international crisis mediator, a lawyer, global activist, author, and pioneer social entrepreneur. He's also the founder of Himalayan Consensus, an NGO, the African Consensus Movement, both dedicated to protecting ethnic diversity through sustainable economics and fight against climate disruptions. Brahm also is the founder of and CEO of Shambhala Serai. Did I say that right? Serai?
Shambhala Serai.
Serai, one of Asia's first social enterprises. And as a founder and executive of the Himalayan Consensus Institute, he oversees the Himalayan Consensus Process that established a second-track dialogue between stakeholders in region towards combating climate disruption and empowering communities facing climate impact. Since 2012, he's advised China's Ministry of Environmental Protection and drafted a comprehensive green print to shift from fossil fuels to renewables that was adopted national policy for re-greening China on April 25th, 2015. He's also currently advises the Bhutan's National Environmental Commission on wastewater environmental regulatory frameworks. Laurence, wow, welcome. I mean, I could read like so much more. I was like, this are the few things Laurence has been doing and has done. But welcome to Global Purpose Speaks. It's great to have you. An honor.
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you for having this purpose, because bringing more minds together and ideas together is about a collective transformation that our planet needs right now.
Absolutely, and absolutely. And as we're getting into that conversation, as you are right now, you're in Kathmandu, Nepal. Can you tell us a little bit about just what you're doing there right now in Kathmandu? What project are you working on currently?
Well, this is the lead up to the annual Himalayan Consensus Summit. And what we do is we bring into the room environmentalists, scientists, who we consider to be the R&D. We bring in the room local community activists, innovators, people who are, solving problems at the grassroots. I call them they're the innovators, the creators. And then we bring business and finance into the room, because we want to get capital to people and to communities to really be able to scale change. And we have government leaders in the room as well, and we ask them to sit in the audience and listen, because they need to really take on board these ideas. The summit this year is going to be very interesting. We are building from the idea of renewable energy, transboundary water conservation, finance, community empowerment, and the prevention of conflict. And it's an entire process that runs. We'll have the summit each year, but then we'll be running meetings and convening people throughout the year. And every summit, we come up with a sort of hit list of things that we want to accomplish for the year, and then we go out and we do it.
That's amazing. How many years have you guys been doing this summit that's coming together right now? What year are we at?
Initiated the very first one in 2014, and that was on the eve of the SARC Summit, South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation of each of the South Asian countries, was in Kathmandu. And we did a sideline conference calling for the principles of consensus to be in the SARC agenda. And those principles are, first of all, protecting community, identity, local rights, but to do it too through business, meaning change the financial system, get capital to people, not just up at the top at the investment banks. And three, not only prioritize environment, but realize that the protection of environment, from rolling out renewable energy systems to water conservation, recycling systems, is actually the next big mega business trend. It's the next opportunity. So don't think that business and environment...
Hey, I'm here. You cut out for about 20 seconds there, talking about business and environmentalism coming together. You said some very important stuff, but you cut out.
Probably the fossil fuel industry heard me and wanted to cut the, the wire. Basically, what we're talking about here is recognizing that the next mega trend for business is and should be renewable energy. And to stop thinking in the way that, oh, we can't do renewable energy because it's too expensive, or we can't do energy because it doesn't provide enough energy. That is all mythology of the fossil fuel industry. Renewable energy actually can offer free energy. And if you think about what that does for communities and businesses, think about probably anyone's biggest expense is their energy bill. And most of the time, that's a fossil fuel bill. And so suddenly you reinvigorate communities, businesses, and you also change the nature of energy. Get communities off of a central grid, allow communities to create their own energy. And, last year when we held the Himalayan Consensus Summit, we said we've got to change the mind of Wall Street. I've been a mediator and negotiator in a lot of crises, and I always say the problem is the solution. Remember that. The problem, you're staring at a problem, you say, down with that problem is actually your solution. And so Wall Street's the solution. When they realize that they need to be putting money into renewable energy and it will be profitable, and coal stays in the ground, fossil fuels, literally the dinosaur bones stay in the ground. And that is transformational. So it will make money for you, but it's going to be a fund that will invest into renewable energy and water conservation in the Himalayan region. Okay, what you normally consider a high-risk zone, Wall Street doesn't go there. It's the opportunity because there's such a need. And Scandinavian Eskanana Bank, the Swedish bank, is taking the lead on managing this fund. We're going to announce the fund in 2 weeks. Wow. And it's Christopher Flensburg. He's an amazing guy. He also went through a personal transformation, almost lost his life, came back, and he decided as an investment banker to dedicate himself to green. And he's the architect of the very first green bond with China. And today, only 2 years after the launch of that bond, China is the largest issuer of green bonds in the world. 50% of all green bonds are coming from China. And so he took this project on, and it's going to be launched. And again, the idea is show Wall Street it can be different. It's not just one model. It's not just one way. Yeah. Keep those dinosaur bones in the ground.
And this is a good conversation, and I was going to ask this later, but because you're touching on it right now, like speaking of like what we need in the modern era, can you speculate, just like from your observance over the past few decades and just like your consultancy with all these different organizations and countries, just current situation, if we look at like the United States and the political situation as far as, a lot of the different roles that are being placed by President Trump in office, like what changes can we expect to see in the U.S. and global economy? Because we're speaking of environment in this conversation. I just want to hear your viewpoint, like what you can see happening and like maybe what we as individuals can do in this process and how mindfulness can play into all this. How would you kind of like look at it?
I was probably one of the only people that predicted Trump would win. And I predicted that because of the turbulence I saw within the country. And I see all of this divisiveness and all of this duality. Mm-hmm. And, I was, in the wintertime, I was teaching at the University of Hawaii Law School negotiation courses. And students always ask me, how do you determine a team that wins and a team that loses? And I said, the team that wins is the one that's united and working together. When everybody's fighting politics among themselves, everybody loses. That team will lose. I don't care how good their arguments or cases, they're going to lose. And that's what's happening in our own country. And if you look at what's happening, I'll make another prediction. China will, in the next 5 years, lead the world on renewable energy, on green energy. It will also create a new financial architecture for the developing South, based on infrastructure, based on shared security, based on economic growth that is a balanced growth that will increase prosperity create jobs for people in areas where there are no jobs. And that is going to be about preventing violence and conflict. And they're also going to lead on robotics. They're going to lead on artificial intelligence.
Wow.
They're going to probably put a man on the moon, on Mars, in the next 5 years. And we're going to be sitting there denying climate change, tearing up international agreements, isolating people, and pitching one ethnic and religious group against another. That is not a way to lead and go forward.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of criticism about China in the spectrum of fields, from shutting down internet, human rights, all kinds of things are out there. But the big picture is we're no better. We've got one African American being shot by police every 28 hours on average. When you sit overseas and you look at America and you read the news or get the flashes in your phone, it's one killing after another. You sit there and you go, what is this? Is this Mogadishu? Is this Peshawar? What's going on? It seems like it's a war zone. From people on the outside, it's I don't want to travel there. What's happening? And so we have taken a course over the past, not just few years, past 8 years and the 8 years before that. We've had one presidential administration after another and Congress all going in the wrong directions. And we have lost our global leadership. And the way to lead, I've said this to the Chinese leaders, I meet with them all the time. I've said, your greatest soft power will be to lead the world on renewable energy solutions. That will be the soft power that everybody, hundreds of years from now, the history books will look back. In the end of the day, they summarize things in a few sentences, dynasties and yeah. So, how do you want to be remembered? And I think that's really the key thing, is which countries will lead now on the issue of survival of the planet.
That's it. And I think you hit it right there. Let's back up here just a little bit, because I do want to touch on this area. Prior to, from just reading about your history, you've been working with a lot of different multinational organizations since the 90s and late 80s. But around 2002, you kind of went in a different direction, which eventually formed Himalayan Consensus. Can you just speak a little bit about what made you, what caused you that shift of your focus? Was there one event or like a series of events that made you look the other way?
I think it was a series of events. Put it in perspective, and look at what I did. I was the legal advisor to ExxonMobil. I brought ExxonMobil into China. Wow. I brought Monsanto into China. Roche Pharmaceuticals. I was their advisor on each of these first deals. Bayer Chemical. And, Glencore, the big mining, commodity trading group. I was their lawyer in China. And you look back and you realize that these multinational corporations, a lot of the time, at the time as a lawyer, you're saying, okay, China was in poverty, you bring investment in, it's good. But then you look back and you go, well, solving the problem has created another problem. Mm-hmm. And the other factor is I looked at the corporation, I said, these guys are not caring about what they're doing. They're just caring about pushing their stock price up and eventually cashing out as management. They don't even be responsible to the shareholders. As a lawyer, you think about all this thing about fiduciary duty to your shareholders.
Exactly.
Managing other people's money. They don't. And so I reached a point where I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I said, I just have to stop. I can't go on with it. And I just said, I want to stop everything. And I said, well, this idea of searching for Shangri-La grabbed my imagination. I said, I've always wanted to be like an explorer and just do stuff like you read about in National Geographic. So I dumped everything, put together a TV crew. Some of my best friends in China were some of the leading media artists, singers, very interesting alternative minds. And we set out on these, what ended up being 3 expeditions over the first decade of this century. And, this year, National Geographic Air Water Conservation Fund recognized these, gave us their award. as the Millennial Expeditions because we raised the awareness of anthropomorphic climate change in China, and that led to ecological civilization, new policies that the government's adopting. And it came from the whole idea of, traveling around looking for Shangri-La. But I mean, the point is you don't find Shangri-La, you shouldn't even look for it, you create it. Mm-hmm. Because the most important thing about those expeditions was not finding anything, it was meeting people. And I found so many people at the local level.
Yeah. The journey, it's about the journey that's, wherever you're trying to go to. It's the process.
Yeah. And I found local people were saying, look, I want to protect my environment. I want to protect my culture. I want to protect my community. I have to create a small business to do it because nobody gives a damn.
Yeah.
And it suddenly learned a different way of thinking. Everybody, I wrote a book called Conversations with Sacred Mountains. It's being published by Ibis Press right now. It's being launched in March with the Himalayan Trilogy. And Conversations with Sacred Mountains. Well, every mountain, every people in the Himalayas prays to snow-capped mountains. And, the logic of coming from, probably the Western way of thinking is, this is superstition. It's not, it's ecology. These people had science wired way before we even thought about it. And, it's just about understanding their knowledge and their understanding of the economic interconnectivity of all things in our ecological system. And what I realized was the answers are there. The answers are not coming from some PhD in a university. They're not coming from some think tank in Washington. They're coming from local people. So to answer your question, you just asked me, America in the Trump and post-Trump era, the future is local communities saying to hell with the federal government. They cannot help us, and they are not going to help us. Washington is lost. It's about communities, cities, neighborhoods, people getting together and revitalizing themselves, creating local economies and, supporting, coming together as a community. I call it diversified localization, not monolithic globalization. That's the future. That's what's going to revitalize America.
That's amazing. So in your travels and in your process, we speak a lot about like your purpose and your direction. Like, was there a point you found, like, was there a point you had like the major aha, like, this is my purpose, this is what I have to do? Like when do you know when that is your grand purpose? Like, how did you know that for yourself?
I think it came in stages, and I think there were maybe two, if I wanted to like isolate two stages. One is the search for Shangri-La.
Yeah.
We found out by Expedition 3 that Shangri-La is the misspelling of another word called Shambhala. And again, Shambhala is an ideal of the future. And the legend or the prophecy of Shambhala is that 2,500 years after the nirvana of Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, we are in the age of Kali, or the age of destruction. And, powers rise based on ideology, and they destroy the environment for greed. The three poisons of Buddhism, greed, ignorance, and anger, become the sort of the mantra of this new empire. And there ends up being wars, and the rich get richer, the poor get poor, and finally the king of Shambhala says enough of this stuff, and he basically sends what are called the warriors of Shambhala to rid, the three poisons of greed, ignorance, and anger, and establish really a world which is an extension of Shambhala, where those who have give to those who don't. People respect the environment. Protects life, and we enter into what in another language might be the age of Aquarius. And this thing struck me because I said, hey, this prophecy is real. We are in the age of Kali. And so we are all warriors of Shambhala. We have to make things happen. It's about action. It's not about, withdrawing. It's about going out there and changing. And I think that was like the fundamental thing that was like the light bulb is on, man.
Going out there and doing it. Yeah, absolutely. It's not just talking about it or withdrawing from it. Like, we have a mission, so go out there and put your mission to work and affect some lives. And you're saying, like, starting at community level, that's where the magic's at right now. It's in the communities. The power's right here. People gathering, coming together. That's beautiful. I really love that. Because I personally see it traveling all over, doing music at yoga festivals and events. Yeah. These people are coming together, meditating, speaking about empowering their lives. So I'm fully with you on that. Let me ask you, what you've studied this stuff for so long, spiritual teachings. Can you share maybe just a few, like the relevancy of spiritual teaching and practice right now in our modern era, and just like what we're coming across with, like what do you kind of foresee like mindfulness in this whole process right now as communities are gathering? What do you foresee?
Well, let's just look at the antithesis of it. Let's look at what's happening in Washington. All this anger, all of this short-sightedness, and everything about greed, and it's all short-sighted, and creating dualities, you against me, them against us, racial dualities, religious dualities, sexual dualities. And when we practice meditation or mindfulness, it's about, first of all, eliminating the duality within us. Eliminating that conflict within us. And then it's about going out and changing that with others. First of all, sharing it with others, and then changing it. I think if you look at the three major branches of Buddhism, Theravada, or Mahayana, and Vajrayana, the Theravada that is practiced in Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, it's about mindfulness and meditating to eliminate that duality within. Mahayana, which is Zen, is about doing it for everyone else, not just me. And the Vajrayana is all action. Tibetan Buddhism, go out there and transform. Use positive energy to overcome negative. And this, I think, is when you see people, first of all, at the community level saying, okay, we got too much stress, we've got too much junk going on this sort of social media, too much anger. I'm just going to clear my mind and I'm going to come together to myself. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to find my place in the universal order. Second, I'm going to go out, I'm going to share that with others, and I'm going to share that positive energy. And three, together as a community, we're going to go out and we're going to change. And let's just, one of my Wing Chun, I do a lot of martial arts, and my Wing Chun master, he always says to me, you are where you're at. Think about that. You are where you're at. You don't have to become president of the United States. You don't have to become congressman. Go right to your community. You are where you're at, right there. Here we are. There's something we can do. We can change something. I mean, this morning, there were monks out in the street here working together with volunteers from overseas, just picking up garbage. It's a real picking up the garbage all over the street here in Kathmandu. Suddenly you're reducing spread of disease. You're reducing all kinds of problems. Not just an eyesore. When you start to recycle that, then the samsara of waste. We want to create zero waste, liberate waste. I mean, this is, we're talking about environmental economics. Again, you don't learn that stuff from the PhDs. You learn it from monks and the nomads. They know what they're doing.
Exactly. You learn it from watching these, groups and people just doing it out there and getting out there. Let me ask you this: as far as 2017 goes, not talking about just politics and all. There's people scared, there's people excited, but I like to look at it on the positive element as well. Like, what's exciting you right now in 2017? Like, what are some of your personal projects, or what's getting you going right now this year?
Well, one of the things that we see the Himalayan Consensus as is ultimately being a crisis prevention dialogue and second track, because crisis arises not because, or violence, conflict arises not because of religion. I don't buy that argument we're hearing from Donald Trump. If you go all over Himalayas, you've got Jains, Buddhists, Muslims, all living side by side, Hindus, every kind of, nobody was fighting over religion. In fact, right here in Nepal, there's so many religions. I walk out the door of my house and down the street, you've got every branch of Buddhism and Jainism and Bon and Hindu right here within just a few yards of where I live. Nobody's in conflict. Conflict arises because people are economically disempowered and their identity is marginalized. And if we can solve those two problems, we're going to reduce a heck of a lot of conflict. And that's about action, and it's about community. And that's, I think, to me, that's the most important thing we're focusing on right now, because you've got a lot of duality out there, and it's going to create a lot of conflict.
Wonderful. No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And what would you say, like, some of the best ways to stay in touch with you? Like how, before I say that, like, you have a book coming out in March. So that's right now, this month it's coming out.
It's really nice in Boulder. The World Affairs Conference invited me to speak on a number of panels, and they're launching the Himalayan Trilogy. Those are 3 books covering the 3 for me personally, the transformational expeditions. The first book, Searching for Shangri-La. The second is Conversations with Sacred Mountains, and the third is Shambhala Sutra. Wow. And those are published by IBIS, which is, I think, the leading American New Age publisher. And so they'll be launched first, I believe it's April 10th to the 14th in Boulder at the World Affairs Conference. And then we're going to do another launch on April 15th at the Lumbini Gallery at the Shambhala Center in Berkeley. And so if anyone's around Boulder or Berkeley, join us. And if you want to look at the books, IBIS is the publisher, and we have a Searching for Shangri-La YouTube channel. So you can follow little excerpts from our expeditions there. So tune in.
Yeah,
join the journey. Join the journey.
Is there a website that you would recommend people go directly to either stay in touch with you or find more information? We'll get the YouTube link up there for sure. But is there like a website to stay in touch with you or anything like that?
Facebook. I'm on Facebook. There's the YouTube Searching for Shangri-La YouTube channel, and then of course there's the Himalayan Consensus website. I have my own website, or lawrencebrahm.asia. That's what it is. lawrencebrahm.asia is my own. But tune into Searching for Shangri-La YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I'd say that's where to go. And look at follow the journey, and give us your comments, and Searching for Shangri-La YouTube channel, my Facebook, and I look forward to joining you at some of your, the yoga festivals and mindfulness festivals that you're working at.
Yeah, I'm going to be sharing more with you on that as well. But first of all, Laurence, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us and sharing this. We'll get all that information up there, and the most I'm just hoping the most abundance and prosperous on your path of, like, just all the work that you're doing. It's really beautiful, and thank you for being a light in the world, for all the work to be done. And we're here with you. Just know that, like, the people that are watching this, we're all the action-oriented individuals that's here to create the shift and be the shift. Really, we have to be the shift.
We all do it together. I mean, it's combustion. Bring the positive energy together, and it becomes really, really powerful. So, all of us together. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining another episode of Global Purpose Speaks. I'm your host, Taz Rashid, and this talk series is created in partnership with Global Purpose Movement, a collective of change makers convening and co-creating in the globe's current shift towards a world that's working for everyone. And you can join the conversation at globalpurposemovement.com. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.